Hey everybody, welcome to the free class with GP Walsh. Obviously I'm not him, but I'm introducing him. My name's Evan. I'm GP's business partner here at the Master Heart Institute and also a facilitator myself of inner reconciliation. Really glad you could all be with us today, and we don't want to waste any time, but thanks to everyone who's here on YouTube as well as on our platform on Zoom. For those of you here on Zoom, it's pretty easy, I think, to see what's there in front of you on the app. Q&A is where you can type in questions at the time when GP asks if anybody has any or anything they want to share. You can type stuff into the Q&A, and raising your hand when he asks for that, if he gets to that today, is where you can step up to ask to join live. If you have a microphone, something like this, or camera as well. If you don't want to be on camera, that's fine. I usually assume you don't, but if you do, just let me know, or if you have any issues with that. But if you really just want to avoid all that, just type your question into the Q&A, and we'll see that too. Everybody on YouTube, I believe I'll be able to see your comments typed into the YouTube chat as well. Usually that's fine. So I guess that's all of the technical side. So if anybody has any issues technically or anything, I'll be manning the console here. So just let me know. And without any further ado, I will, well, I don't actually have to switch you over. GP will just start talking.
I'm just going to start talking, and then suddenly my face gets really big. So welcome, everyone. Welcome to this very interesting idea I had for a class. And I wanted to do this class free. I mean, some people have actually asked me, how come I charge for some class? What makes me make up my mind as to which class to charge for and which one's not? I like doing things free. If I could, I'd do everything free. But obviously we have to keep the doors open. And so I pretty much the classes that go for, you do an in-depth or they go for a longer period of time, where they're home study, where they take a lot of preparation with video and the like, are going to be charged for. But I do several free things every single month. And this one I wanted to do because it's just so damn important. The title of this is to truly see yourself, and that sounds like maybe I should have made it a little bit more dire. Maybe I should have started talking about the what happens when you don't truly see yourself. And it's not really hard. All you have to do is look for everything in your life that isn't working, everything in your community that isn't working, everything in the world that isn't working, and you will see exactly the consequences of not truly seeing yourself. Somebody who you really have to be blind to yourself to be cruel, to be barbaric, to be exploitive. Nobody can actually see themselves and continue with that kind of behavior. You have to create some kind of illusion about yourself. It's just the way it is. There's no such thing as a person who gets up first thing in the morning and plans how evil they're going to be. That only happens in the movies. It just takes incredible joy in just being evil. And on a more personal note, nobody here or anybody I've ever met or anybody I've ever worked with or anybody I know that's ever been involved in anything at all has ever gotten up in the morning with the intention to make their life miserable that day. But we don't know why things go wrong. We don't, we can see it in others. We say, well, you're just, geez, it's really obvious what's the matter with you. Why don't you, you need to fix your thinking. You need to change your emotional state. You need to, you need to tap, you need to do something to flip what's going on around inside of you. But if it was that easy, everybody would just do it in an instant. Why isn't it easy? And why do I emphasize truly seeing yourself as the antidote for all the stuff that's going on currently in our own lives and in the world? Well, my premise is very simple, and that is that at the heart and soul, at the very root of every single one of our problems that we experience in life, difficulties, failures, pressures and stresses, disappointments and disillusionments, both personally and then expanding out to an entire world, which nobody can look at the world right now and say, hey, it's pretty good, because it's not. It's a mess. We have made a mess of things. At the root of all of it At the root of everything happening in your life, you will find on a completely unspoken level of assumption, of abstraction, of generalization, and that it is so pervasive and so embodied in the energy system that it doesn't even cross your mind that it isn't so, is the self-image that you hold. The picture you're holding yourself, who you think you are. It's a big thing to say, and it seems like it'd be a huge thing to, I mean, how do you deal with something you can't see? How do you deal with something that is so pervasive? It's influencing everything, but yet you can't even articulate it. We go through our life thinking, this is who I am. And we never ask for, and we never stop long enough to say, is this really who I am? We even then will take, this is who I am, going to make them better. I'm going to make them more spiritual. I'm going to make them more, do more personal development work. I'm going to make them meditate longer during the day. I'm going to do all sorts of visualization. I'm going to buy another copy of Mind Movies. I'm going to do some more things, all of which is good. Nothing's wrong with any of that stuff, but it's missing the boat. It's missing the fundamental thing, because if you don't shift dramatically and permanently the underlying assumption you hold about who you are, the rest of it will just be window dressing. You're basically putting lipstick on the pig. Sorry, maybe that's not the best analogy to use. Sorry, anybody out there, I'm not insulting anyone. So to truly see yourself is the root of the whole thing. And the good news about this, especially for anybody who's been on a spiritual path or doing personal development work for decades, like I did, it's the only thing you have to concern yourself with. It's the one thing, right? Every single experience you're having, every issue you're having, everything you're suffering, every bit of misery, everything in your life that isn't working is emanating from there. If you get to there, you have put the axe to the root of the tree. There's nothing left for you to do. You've gone the entire distance. Now, in this first little section here, I just want you to consider this. I mean, maybe you never have before. Some of you have taken some other classes from me, or been in some of my satsangs, and this may not be all that unfamiliar to you, me talking like this. Nonetheless, I want you to reconsider it, and consider it again. Because the habits by which we act out our life, the ingrained patterns, the programmed responses, the conditioned actions that we do, those automatic responses that we seem to have no control over, it was those patterns that the sense of identity formed on, the sense of who you are. The self-image formed in response to that, and as a part of that. The sense of identity is another creation of the defensive mechanism of the nervous system. You're convinced it's you. You're absolutely convinced this is who I am. I like kale. I don't like steak, or vice versa. All your preferences, all your desires, all of it is in fact emanating from this place. And none of it is actually yours. None of it belongs to actually you when you see yourself as you really are, when you truly do see yourself. Now, for many, this is actually a bit of a frightening prospect. We have all been programmed, convinced, enculturated that we are fundamentally flawed. Many of you were in the class I did last week called You're Not Broken, where I went some more depth into this whole idea of being effectively defective, right? I mean, we were born as sinners. We were born as with all sorts of limitations and flaws built into us that we've had to spend our life compensating. I mean, it's engrounded in our political system, it's engrounded in our economics, it's engrounded in our religious life. Even a more awakened spiritual approach is trying to overcome the body and the ego to become, divine and awakened. All of those have at their root the assumption of this person you think you are, this image that is being held, that now needs to be fixed. This assumption of being broken is so pervasive and is beat on us so often and for so long that nobody ever bothers to question it. And it makes us afraid to question it. On one hand, we have self-help, personal development gurus who tell us, rightfully so, to really lift yourself up. Start thinking good about yourself. Start exchanging the self demeaning thoughts with self affirming thoughts, and do affirmations and visualizations and all of that. All of that is like really good. All of that has to be done. And that's the approach we want to take. But have you noticed that it's not easy to do? That there's a bit of a struggle to do it? Well, that struggle is the energetic assumption that lives underneath that is really afraid that if I really do know myself, that I'm not going to like what I see. And I'm doing all this stuff to improve myself and fix myself. And have you noticed that it never ends? Have you noticed that no matter what improvement you make in your life, that something else pops up to take its place? Something else needs to, something else isn't right, something else isn't appropriate, some other weakness shows up, the next opportunity shows up, and now that weakness is present, and you have another failure. It's never ending. This road seems to never stop. Well, it can't stop. If the underlying assumption is there's something wrong with me and it has to be fixed, two things are going to happen. Number one, I'm always just going to be experiencing more evidence that I'm broken and need to be fixed. And number two, I'm going to be afraid to turn my attention directly on myself because I don't want to actually face the fact that I am broken. Now, please take this in, because it's deeply spiritual, and it is at the heart and soul of the essential trauma that all of us suffer from. If my underlying assumption is that I am broken, that I am flawed, that I am unlovable, that I am ugly, that I am stupid, that I am not enough in some way, fill in the blank, whatever works for you. If that assumption is there, the last thing I'm going to want to do is directly confront it. I'm spending my whole life trying to prove it's not true, trying to overcome it, trying to get some kind of feedback from the environment that it's not true. The last thing I want to do is turn directly towards it, because deep down inside, I believe it is true. I believe that that is the truth about me. I am really flawed. I am a mess. And I don't want to look at that. And of course, when that idea, when that belief got planted in you, and I didn't purposely didn't say it, thought, right? Even the word belief isn't adequate, because when that gets instilled in you, when that perspective gets instilled in you, that you are in fact not enough, it gets instilled usually before we can even speak. It's absorbed from the environment, because our parents felt the same way, and their parents felt the same way, and their parents felt the same way, and on as far back as it goes. So it was instilled energetically within us. And when that dawned on us, when that actually began to confront us energetically, and that sense of being absolutely lovable and wanted and present, and the pure innocence of childlikeness confronted that, it was the first and really the only trauma. It is the one that we have been compensating for ever since. And that is a moment of such pain that we turn from it. Everybody does this. Folks, this happened to everybody, right? This is the human condition. There is no way it can happen. That's why it was memorialized in all sorts of myths and legends throughout all time. The one most familiar to us is the fall of Adam and Eve, when they ate that fruit of good and evil, and suddenly it was God good, me evil. And in many really harsh Christian traditions, especially the fundamentalist one, they will say that God, you are so ugly, so horrible, so abhorrent to God that he won't even look at you. That's why he had to send and torture his son so that he could then look at you again, to pay the price, because you're just so horrible. God, infinite love, infinite wisdom and intelligence, so powerful, nothing, what can possibly offend him is offended by you. I mean, we're taught this stuff, okay? Many of you more severely than others. But this is the underpinning of our culture. But the reality is that fall was this initial sense of the confrontation between just the pure, innocent naturalness of us as children, running smack dab into the resistance of the environment to who we were. And of course, you're so fragile, you're so vulnerable, you're so frail that the environment's going to win. The tribe is going to win. Their view is going to take precedence. It's going to become your truth. It has to, because if it doesn't, you can't survive. Your nervous system actually assumes that to be the truth, takes it on as the truth, and now begins to act in the world as if it is the truth. And the essential trauma, the essential schism, the original sin, the original fall now goes completely underground. And from that moment on, you are on the path of compensating for it. Now, for some, that compensation may be, I mean, it takes all sorts of different forms. It can be self-deprecation, or it can be self-adulation. It can be somebody who consistently fails. It's somebody who just succeeds upon succeeds upon succeeds upon succeeds. It can be an accumulation of stuff. It can be a denial of the world. All of it attempting to compensate for this essential feeling. And so perhaps this is the reason why I oftentimes have a hard time communicating to people about inner reconciliation, even bring them to an experience of inner reconciliation, which is my means of dispelling this illusion of the original separation, of the original fall, the original sin, as it were, with the original innocence, dispel it, because it simply is frightening to turn within and take a look at ourselves. We don't want to, because we are afraid of what we're going to find. We're all afraid that what we're going to find is that the tribe was right, that we are broken, that we are, in fact, a mess. And I don't want to see that. If I see that, it'll just kill me. So, I'm hoping this, I was not planning on going in this direction today, but this just kind of feels like a mature enough group that I can head this direction. Screw it. Let's get right to the heart of the issue. Let's get right to the heart of our stuff. Let's stop just, trimming the tree. The tree is not producing good fruit. Let's dig it up by the root. So who are you? Who do you think you are? And let's see if we can explore a little bit that gap. Let me put something up here real quick. I'm going to leave this one up here because I think it's going to be relevant when I talk about this one. This was from the previous class. You can all see the board clearly. I'm actually sitting on a stool here. I may have to stand up. I want you to understand that this is the real you. There is a real you. There is a you, a genuine, authentic, beautiful you that was there before the conditioning took place. Now, think about it just for a second. Even if you can't feel it, and right now you probably can't, just think about it for a moment. We were not born conditioned. Right? I mean, everybody is born just being what they are, right? Nothing is restricting them. It's total innocence. It's total perfect genuineness, right? So nobody starts conditioned, right? We have to interact with the environment. Something in the environment begins to push back on us in order for that conditioning to take place. And over time, what emerges is a false self, a false you, a you that isn't you. And a good way to think of it is simply a self-image. Now, is the image you're seeing on the screen right now me? No, I'm sitting here in Astoria, New York. I'm sitting here in my apartment, just hanging out. I've got all of this stuff around me. You're seeing an image of me. Now, it's a good image, right? It's representing. It's actually uh, correctly representing me. It's the color of my shirt and basically the color of my skin and my hair. Or well, there's no color left in my hair, but it's got the white, right? So it's my words are actually, you're hearing them in exactly the way I'm saying. It's not distorting anything in the middle, but it's not me. It is a two-dimensional version of me. Now, in that two-dimensional version, it's pretty good. I can communicate a lot, and eventually I'll open it up. We'll be able to communicate together through completely me. I mean, I'm not see you or hear you at all, but your words will be typed in there, and we'll be able to communicate. The image is not the original. Period. I mean, would you be satisfied if you really wanted to go and visit the Himalayas? Or India, or or Bali, or the Caribbean, or wherever your dream vacation is? Would you be satisfied? Just look at a bunch of pictures in a book, or videos on YouTube? No. It's a representation. It's not the experience. Your self-image is a representation of you. It's not you. It couldn't possibly be you. I mean, I want you to follow this, because what we act out is this, not this. Whoops, I get sorts of chords here. We're acting this self-image out. And this self-image is a false version of you. So what I want to do, at least open the door to, is make a little crack here, a little crack here, and let in a little bit of light so we see a little bit of what is really you. What is truly you? And we're going to do this more through feeling than through thinking about it. And the reason I'm going to do that is really very important. And it's one of the reasons why I have disagreements with a lot of teachers of law of attraction and a lot of personal development. And it's simply because the mind only works in images. It does not work in terms of feeling. The mind feels nothing. It's just pictures, memories, associations. Sometimes they're great pictures, sometimes they're not so great pictures. If those pictures had no emotional content attached to them, they'd come and go. We wouldn't care. Nobody would care at all. And in fact, different pictures have different images. Some people like going to violent movies. I myself do not. No, thank you, not interested. Other, I like to go hear jazz. Some people don't, right? So the actual thing itself is the same for every one of us, but our response to it, our emotional reaction to it, the fulfillment that it has, or the lack of fulfillment that it has in our lives, depends on how it feels, not on what it is in terms of our identification intellectually. And the same is true here. Your life does not exist as an image. It exists as a felt direct experience. But if you hold to a particular image, it is going to severely constrict the range of experience that you can have. Right? If this is who I am, and I'm insisting this on being who I am, that being so dominant, your feelings are going to basically conform to that image and try to keep everything else away from it. So it's incredibly powerful. Believing this image is the equivalent of thinking that you've seen a travel log on China and that you've been to China, or that movie Total Recall that they made twice, where some guy wanted to, where there was a company, it was a science fiction, and this company could instill memories in you. So you didn't actually have to go on a vacation. They would instill the memories, and you'd think that you were there, and you have all these wonderful memories, and they'd provide pictures and all of this stuff so that you could think you were there, and in fact you weren't. A lot cheaper than actually taking the vacation. Okay? So this self-image is like that. It's like we're living a life, and then we're wondering why our life is so unsatisfying. Well, you're living in the travelogue. You're not actually living your life. That's the truth. And it is the feeling that something is missing is your best friend in this. I hope you get that. Your feelings are saying, something's wrong with this. Now, if you knew it was a travelogue, you go, well, of course, I'm not really there. I want to actually go to China. I just want to see some films. I want to actually go. I want to see the Forbidden City. I want to smell it. I want to touch the walls. Right? That's life. That's experience. And so that feeling that something is missing, that there's something's not quite right, that something's not enough, is real. It's not a problem you have to get rid of. As a matter of fact, when I do classes on inner reconciliation, it's where we focus all the attention. That sense of resistance, that sense of discomfort. Whereas in most systems, it's regarded as a problem that you have to get rid of, all right, and visualize until you don't feel that way, because you have to have the good feelings in order to manifest what you want. We put all of our attention there because there's truth in it. Your energy wants the direct, visceral experience of life, not an artifact. Now, what holds this artifact together? What holds this whole thing together? The fact that you, well, let's put it in blue. The fact that you believe this. You believe the fake you. You believe that that's you. And that's what I want to try to contradict. And well, let's do a little. Let's just have a little bit of experience right now. Right. Everybody, close your eyes. And I do see some things on chat and Q&A. Like I will get to questions. But before I go to questions, which we'll be engaging at the levels of mind, I want to bring you to the level of the heart, the level of feeling. I want you to bring you at the level of where life really exists, not this brilliant, but highly limited representational instrument we have called the mind. So close your eyes. And now just focus your attention on how your body is feeling. Everything I've said, even if you really disagree with it, as long as you're engaged and haven't clicked away, something is engaged with it, which means something is being felt. Believe me, if you weren't feeling anything, you would not be here. We are feeling, seeking entities. Life is felt. So whatever you're feeling in this moment, I want you to turn your attention towards it. It may be familiar, maybe old stress from before. It may be some childhood thing that's still bugging you. It could be karmic. Right? We are not interested right now in defining it or putting a name on it. I want you to just feel. I want you to let yourself feel whatever happens to be there. Whatever is going on in your body. Just notice where there's feeling and where there isn't much feeling. Like the internal organs, there's not much feeling there. There's just kind of a presence. You feel like the weight of it, the warmth of it. You can feel around your skin, muscles, joints, your heart, chest. Just notice what's there. And your mind will always judge and interpret it. That's what minds do. It's not a problem. We're not trying to get the mind to be quiet. That's actually not possible. We are simply taking our attention and putting it elsewhere. Just feel. And picture something, if you like. Just picture something that you've really, that really means something to you. Maybe it's a lover or a child or an ambition or your work or anything that has some meaning to you, some value. Just picture that. And then just watch the feelings that begin to emerge around that picture. They may be very exciting. They may be very happy and joyful. There may be a feeling of resistance. There may be a feeling of frustration. Right? We don't even really need to put words on it. Just feel them. You're really giving yourself permission to feel whatever you happen to be feeling. Now, for some, it's common on a class when I do an exercise like this for some that feelings can get rather intense. And if that's happening to you, I want you to just stay with it, stay with that feeling, and just notice that no matter how intense it is, you're experiencing it, and it's not killing you. You're actually bigger than it. Now your mind may jump in and say, this is too much, too intense, I need to turn my attention away. And you just say, thank you, I don't need you right now. No, I don't need to turn my attention away. If it really was going to hurt me, I'd need to know about it. And just allow yourself to remain focused, undistracted, and present. And as you do, just notice how the energy within you changes. For many of you, this may be the first time you've ever paid this much attention. Your internal world, which is very used to not having much of your attention, is suddenly the center of attention. It's like a spotlight has been turned on you and you're not used to performing. Just be with it. You're really just present. And notice that this is simply how you feel. That's all it is. And you have simply, like all of us, been trained to distract from what you feel, unless it's in line with what the tribe said was allowed. Just experience it. Good. Good. Now take a deep breath. Say thank you to yourself for being willing to do this. And gently open your eyes. Come on back. Okay. A couple of things I wanted you to notice. There's probably a lot more activity going on in there than you realized. Our attention is like a flashlight, right? The attention of our mind, of our focus, is like a flashlight. It has a range of view that's only this big, right? Now we're so used to this and so live there that we think that the only thing that exists is within this little, or for those of you who are in Europe, a torch. We think that that's all there is and that things are coming in and out of it. And in fact, the entire experience is going on all the time. We're only allowing ourselves to experience this much of it, whatever happens to be within the focus. What we've just done is actually kind of turned it from being a spotlight into being a wash of lights. So suddenly you're aware of all of these things that are going on. Of course, while you're doing that, especially at first, your attention is just going to be moving. It's going to turn inward rather than outward, and it's going to move around the body because we're so used to that little flashlight or torch. But little by little, it gets bigger, and you find that there's more and more there. So first off, this inner world there's a lot going on. Notice when you thought of something that meant something to you, that there was immediately some kind of emotional response to it. Right? That's why it means something to you. If that emotional response didn't take place, you would not say it had meaning. That emotional response is the meaning. Now, again, the mind tries to wrap words around it, which is good. It allows us to communicate, but it's only a representation of the actual experience. The experience is, I'm feeling something. I like what I'm feeling, or I don't like what I'm feeling. Whether I like it or I don't like it, whether it's comfortable or uncomfortable, the thing now has meaning. That meaning is the feeling that it invokes within us. Don't have time to go into all the details of this and explore that. That's what inner reconciliation is all about, is exploring the subtleties of those kinds of relationships. The only other thing I want you to notice about this, which is really important, because I wanted to open a little doorway here to show you in a circuitous way the real you. And I just did. You probably didn't recognize it. The reason you don't recognize it is because when I say you, when I talk about you, you keep thinking that it's the self-image. Even when I dismantle the self-image and you see that it's self-image, you're simply looking for another self-image, which that is the road of self-improvement. It is just trying to create a different version of the picture that we're holding in our minds. But did you notice something? That at the center of this, when I asked you to focus your attention, that you could focus the attention. It didn't focus you, you focused it. When I asked you to stay with the feeling, even if it was uncomfortable, you stayed with the feeling. You were perceiving that feeling. When we talked about the thoughts that were coming up, describing it, we said, just no thank you, I don't need you right now. Noticing that there were thoughts there. You're the one who was seeing it all. Even a self-image doesn't exist on its own, does it? I mean, an image must be an image of something. It has no substance in and of itself. So what's the substance? Substance is you. The real you that's always here. There's not like a false you that's here, while the real you is non-existent, and then poof, the real you comes into existence for a minute and then goes away. Maybe it comes in for a second, like, oh, I'm having an enlightenment experience, poof, and then goes away. Oh, it's gone. But it's always here. It's always what's seen. It's always what's feeling. It's just that you, the real you, has mistaken itself to be the false you. It has mistaken itself, you, the real you, have mistaken yourself to be the false you. And that mistake took place because of that essential trauma that took place, where you were simply convinced that you were flawed, that you were not enough, that something was wrong with you, and that your life, that was it. You had to become something else, or you weren't going to survive because you didn't deserve to survive. You weren't good enough. But that you is still here. It is still here. It falsely associated itself. It didn't actually leave. It simply took on an image of itself that isn't true. And that image is what is being projected on the feelings, on the thoughts, and on the sensations. Now notice, the feelings are just the feelings. Even when they got intense, were you able to stay with them? Of course you were, because you're bigger than they are. You're more fundamental than they are. Of course you can stay. I don't care how intense it gets. And I've had experiences, and lots of people we've worked with, and lots of people that my facilitators have worked with have had very intense experiences, only to find that they could just stay with it. And eventually, staying with it, if they didn't succumb to the habit and the training to run away from it, they just stayed there. Suddenly, that lion became a pussycat. Sometimes even changed sides and became supportive when before it was resistant. Because the faults, one more thing I want to point out before I open up for questions and talk about a couple of other things. This is a self-image, okay? This is the reality. Let me put that. Reality. Reality, self-image, okay? In between is our actual experience. Erase, believe, erase this. And what's our actual experience? What we are experiencing, exactly what you're experiencing right there. Really experiencing. Feeling, or emotion, the sensations arising from the body. Thoughts, we experience thoughts. We experience memories. Memories may be beautiful. Memories, associations. We experience description and comparison. We have stories and imagination. All of those things are experienced, right? The one having the experience is always you, the one who's really feeling, the one who's hearing my words right now. There's something actually hearing me, right? The image that you have of yourself gets projected on all of this. This too is real. This too is absolutely real. This is not. It's a false self-image. And that is the mission, to dismantle that. Now, I can't do that in one class, right? There's the experience, but I hope the experience you just had is indicative of what is possible, right? It doesn't take that long to get into the position. And I got you into the position of the real you without even telling you that's what I was doing. You just got into a position where you're simply allowing things to be there, allowing yourself to feel, allowing yourself to experience. I call it the yoga of allowing. And that yoga and that allowing is incredibly powerful, because in that allowing, you are just basically settling in to this place of power. And that place of power is the real you. Now, I've got a whole bunch of classes that I do that are dedicated to this entire process. Matter of fact, inner reconciliation levels 1, 2, and 3. They start right at the beginning and go through the entire structure of how this thing works, all the way up to the levels where I prepare you to be able to coach others to do it and to even talk about it like I am. Its fundamentals are incredibly simple. You just actually experienced it. But consider for a moment what would happen if your fundamental perspective shifted so that you began to live from here and not from here. And in fact, you began to find out how much fun it was to discover where you were living what wasn't you, watching it dissolve in front of your eyes and find a whole new energy begin to emerge. Now, there's an entire process by which I teach you how to do it and bring you through it. You don't actually have to learn the process. I have facilitators if you want to just get coached by it. If you actually want to learn it and learn how it works, we're actually running a special, because levels 2 and 3 just got released. I think Evan put a link on there if you want to go and check it out. Right now, it's like half price for the whole suite, half price for an upgrade if you have already have level 1. But it is the training suite. It is very organized from beginning to end, and so I mean, I hope you will join me. This isn't the end. I'm not doing a pitch here now. We're gonna cut for commercials. I'm doing more, but I really hope you that this taste of what it meant gives you an indication of where I want this to go. Right. I mean, this is a huge insight to discover that all of your experiences, all the unpleasant suffering that you experience in your life, is emerging from believing about yourself what isn't true about you. That's where it comes from. This is why inner reconciliation is fundamentally a spiritual teaching. It is not self-help. In fact, I say it is definitely not self-help. It is self-awareness. It is self-awakening. We are dismantling that which isn't you, little by little. And we do it, it's the most gentle and most interesting way. Exactly what we did. You're simply beginning to turn inside, allowing what you're feeling, and this world inside gets bigger and bigger as you put more and more attention there, more and more focus there. It gets more nuanced, it gets more subtle. You begin to see all sorts of energies that are available, and you begin to communicate with the parts of you that are the power that you're looking for to make the kind of deep and significant transformations in your life that you want. So what's the link? Okay, he typed it into YouTube and here, so you guys can see it. And it's like half price for all 3 of them, which is like $247, and it's like $500 if you get them. But you could take them one at a time over time. They take a while. I think it's probably about 3 to 4 months worth of material if you go through all 3 of them, and you go through them in a nice path. There's meditations, there's exercises, there's live calls we're doing, a graduate group participate and the like. And then beyond that, there's actually coach training that I deliver to deepen it. So I want you to consider that. All right, let's get on to the next part of this, which is I'm going to want to answer some questions, which I'm going to leave this up here. Let me just really quickly review, because it's just like you're not who you think you are. Now, who you think you are was an image that was formed, and you didn't even form it. Okay, I don't even want you to beat yourself. Okay, I got a bad image of myself. No, none of that is your fault. This was all done by your nervous system. It was all done by the energy. You had no, before you had any discrimination or ability to say, that's not really a very good idea. That came way later. This was already in place. It was the natural way in which your energy system reacted to an environment which is basically hostile to who you really were. It's that simple. Not hostile. In some cases, some of you, I'm sure, may have had really abusive lives. I did, right? So it was a very hostile environment. For others, it may not have been so, but there's no such thing as anybody who gets through this unscathed. The fullness of who you are simply cannot fit through the narrow doorway of any human tribe, of any human organization, of any human endeavor. Everybody gets a false sense of identity. It's just the way it is. I don't know why nature set it up this way, but it did. I don't know where God, however it happened. In some spiritual traditions, they say it happens so that you could really realize who you are, that the realization of who you are, that's enlightenment when you see through this whole thing. That's all well and good. Take that up in one of my other classes. And this one is a matter of, how do I live a life that is rich and full? Well, the only way you can live a life that's rich and full is to be you. You can't live a life that's rich and full if you're not being you. It's going to feel empty. It's going to feel constrained. It's going to feel like it doesn't fit. It's going to feel like a pair of shoes that are 2 sizes too small. You're going to wonder, why am I keep making the same decisions? Well, who's making the decisions? That's the question. So, okay, I'm open now to questions or talk to somebody or whatever it is, and I will.
Okay, cool.
Listen
So
on my headphones.
I'm going to keep tabs on that, and just a pointer about the questions. I'm going to take questions that are really related to what we're discussing, and also that are not theoretical. Like, what would somebody who has this kind of situation, like, keep it and try to be specific in terms of relate this to your own life. It's a policy we've had to implement in some groups we've kind of been part of in the past, but I realize we really should do that, because any theoretical question you can easily type on YouTube and see a lot of videos about, but here's your chance to actually work with somebody. It's a rare format, so take advantage of it to make the you know what I mean, make it personal, make it you don't have to share details about your life, but make it about something you're experiencing, something you experienced during the exercise, something you're facing as a challenge, right? Not, well, what is really these kind of questions. There's a good question here. I just asked the person who asked it to clarify a little bit, if they could make it a little bit more personal. So if he's hearing me talk right now, which is, how does one learn to know precisely when the false ego self is directing our thoughts and actions? It's a good question, and I would also, if you see this, to elaborate a bit more on what do you think, as far as what are some things in your life that you feel like are not coming from you, or feel like they're out of your alignment, so we can make this a little bit more pointed. But in the meantime, that's pretty much the question we have. So
great. Let me take that one. Wow, I like that. I like that. Well, first off, it's a matter of becoming sensitive, right? I mean, we're all completely lost in it. We're all completely hypnotized in the beginning. We think that's all there is. And our only indicator that something is off is, and for, some people kind of bumble through their entire lives, and they just believe themselves to be a victim, and they say, well, this is just the way it is, or, they don't educate themselves. They have no curiosity about anything. They're really dulled down, right? Something has to break that spell, so that there's enough of a sense that I'm suffering, that something is missing, that I begin to take some kind of action on it. And at first, we all start out as victims, because guess what? When we're kids, we are victims, right? We have no choice or say in any of it. And for many, that actually goes into adulthood. So the first indication is that if you've got some kind of sense that you can do something about your own life, that you can make choices and decisions and adopt new behaviors and new patterns of thought and belief, that you have yourself considered, is a huge first step. Now, that's the first step, because now discrimination, the real you is driving that. The part of you that does know who it is, that is still that is aware of itself and aware of the environment, is driving the whole process. The sensitivity is actually coming from within us. Just an instinct, an intuition. Something gets our attention that didn't get it before, right? That is the true self speaking to you. The ego is always resistant. It's always defensive. It is always narrow. It is always taking sides. It's always taking a position. It is always judging. It is and critical. And it always feels terrible. Well, I shouldn't say that. You'll learn that the feeling of taking a place of judgment or criticism eventually feels bad. It feels uncomfortable. Right? For a lot of people, taking that position where they think they're better than somebody else, or that person shouldn't act like that, may feel, wow, it's so subtle to feel the difference. The ego is very satisfied by that. Because whenever you say there's something wrong with them, what you're saying is that's what's right about me. Everything you say about somebody else is a reflection of you, right? So if that person shouldn't do something, it means that you have adopted a position that you think is superior to what they're doing, and now you're judging that. But at the same time, if it didn't have some emotional content with it, you wouldn't even bother judging. You wouldn't care. But you have to judge it because something inside you wants what they have. Something inside of you is feeling something is missing, right? It's feeling constrained, and so in order to make itself feel better, it makes other people wrong. It makes everybody else a sinner. They're all going to go to hell. I'm not, right? Which makes us feel comfortable in our incredibly small little place that we've made for ourselves. So there's a sensitivity that needs to take place, and as you go further into inner reconciliation, there's even a whole section I have called intentional triggering, where we go into stuff like this, where we purposely put ourselves in the position where we start feeling the reactions. And as you do that, you begin to see the position that you've taken without even knowing it. I mean, the false you is nothing but a bunch of positions. It's a set of thoughts that are narrow and small that you have adopted in there. In the moment, this is me. That's not me. I'm now good because I'm following these rules. You're not following the rules, so you're not good. I mean that's what wars are. I mean, that's what happens, right? Other than, you've got stuff I want and screw it, I'm going to take it. And but in order to justify, I'm going to make myself superior and you're inferior. That's how it works. So we have to become sensitive. That's the long answer. The short answer: we have to become sensitive to our own feelings. If we're not sensitive to our feelings, the feeling of truth, the feeling of what is real and authentic, which is inherent in you, the real you, is ignored. It's overwhelmed by the assumptions and the aggression, really, and the whole range of emotions that have built up around the false you. Remember, the ego is not a thing. The false self is not an entity. It is a pattern. It is a habit. It is fed by the real you believing that it is, but it is not a thing in and of itself. It's a ghost in the machine. And so it is constantly needing reinforcement from the environment to make it feel as it's safe, to make it feel as if it's true, to make it feel authentic. And so oftentimes the indicator that that this is breaking down, and that what you're really coming from the place of ego, is a feeling of weakness, a feeling of a lack of confidence, a feeling of a lack of being disoriented, being off balance. Because this has to make the environment feed it what it needs. It's a vampire. If the environment does not give it the feedback that it wants, it gets very upset. And we've all had this experience. You've been in a situation, or maybe with somebody, like in a relationship, and you're expecting something from them and you don't get it, and you get really pissed off, right? That's the ego is needing something and it's not getting it. And if you take a long, hard look at most relationships, that's all they are, is two egos have set up a balance between each other to keep feeding each other, and there's very little love in it. There's maybe a lot of attachment, a lot of feeling of necessity, but very little love. So what there really is the truth of this, and I say that with the most the utmost humility, because I'm not asking anybody to accept anything intellectually as truth. I'm asking you to take everything, check it for yourself, and check it out through feeling. But when the truth of something like this, where you realize that you are acting out somebody that's not you, and discovering and embodying and really being the real you becomes more important than anything else. A refinement and a sensitivity begins to emerge, and that ability to discern that which is just an ego need and that which is genuinely the authentic desire of your true self for expression begins to emerge, which is another good way to tell it as well. The true self always just wants to express itself. The ego self wants to get things to fill itself up. So I hope that gives you some guidelines. It's the kind of thing that, like I said, it takes time. But the first step is recognizing that to become who you really are is the only thing in life worth doing. There I said it. At some point, it's got to become more than just all the promises of the law of attraction and the like, of having the wealth and the cars and all of that. That's all well and good. At some point, it's got to become, it doesn't matter how much I have. If I don't know who I am, it doesn't matter. None of it's for nothing. As Christ put it, what does it profit a man if he gains the entire world but loses his own soul? That's what he's talking about. This is what we want. This is the pearl of great price. This is the thing of the most value. Because here is the end of suffering. It's the end of birth and death. It's the end of the big illusion of Maya, however, samsara, for those of you who are more inclined in that direction. So anyway, I could go off on this one forever, but I'll stop. Got another one?
Yes, 1 second. I was just helping somebody with something. Let me go to this. Where are you? There we are. Okay. Hi, GP. Thanks for all you do. I had an awakening in 2012. I have lots of energies that come. Some stick around my face. Others come in through areas and sit in my stomach. I'm riding it and doing fine. Is this normal for the path? Going further, I'm sort of finding a self that was always there.
It's quite normal. It's quite normal, and again, it's part of what I teach in the whole process of inner reconciliation, because there's practice and learnings and inquiry that goes into bringing up to the point of awakening. And when somebody says awakening, for those of you who may not be familiar, all that is simply you really begin to get that that's the real you. The real you becomes more than just a nice idea. It becomes an experience. But of course, your energy system, your nervous system is still operating, right? You're going to see that this false you isn't you long before all of the functions that the false you has projected on are still there, right? Like, you become awakened, and it doesn't mean there's no more rainstorms. It's never a cloudy day anymore. You don't start blinking. You don't get a cold, or make funny noises when you don't want to. All of that continues because that's just the functioning of life, right? So the post-awakening sadhana, the post-awakening practice, is simply an integration. You're just noticing how easy it is for the sense of identity to just begin to lean back into the old habit of thinking of yourself as this limited mortal person. And that's the beauty of it. It goes on for your whole life. It never stops. And it becomes really wonderful. I mean, there's an expectation of people, especially, if you're, when you've suffered a lot, you've had a lot of misery in your life, the hope of personal development, or the law of attraction, or metaphysics, and even spirituality and enlightenment, the hope is that there's going to be now this relief from the suffering. Like there's this heaven where suddenly, boom, everything is gone. But frankly, if that's like totally boring. We want to interact, we want to grow, and growth comes from interaction. It comes from running up against my limitations and then overcoming. And what we really want to relieve is, we don't want the end of life, we want the end of suffering in life. And the end of suffering in life is here. It's from thinking you're something that you're not. When that goes away, life is still going on. Thought is still happening, feeling is still happening, sensations are happening, habits are still coming and going, but you're no longer immersed in them. You're no longer seduced by them. You're no longer stuck. You're no longer stuck in them. And so now the post-awakening sadhana is the very same sadhana that I put people through as they're coming to awakening. Only it's just a slightly different focus. You are now integrating into the entire energy system the sense of the real you, so that this eventually completely goes away, and the whole energy of life itself, the human being, is now revolving around the real you. And that's what Buddha was meant when he said the ordinary human being is the Buddha. When I go into this partially in level 2 and completely in depth in level 3 when we take that apart, when the sense of you, the false sense of you, which is created by the storyteller, which is an energy that I've identified as an archetype, the real you it now replaces the story about you. None of this changes. Your life doesn't go. You don't suddenly, vaporize or ascend up into heaven. All it means is that the functioning of the body, the mind, the nervous system, all of it is now serving the real you, which means this goes from being a burden to being an instrument of expression. Now the piano is tuned. You can play like a maestro. That's what happens. The block between the impulse to express and the manifestation of expression, there's no gaps, there's no block, there's no interference. It's just a direct conduit. It's mastery. So that's the best way I can come to explain it. I hope that helps.
Okay, let me check YouTube and see if there's any. There's none on Zoom.
There's like 27 things on chat. A lot of activity going on.
Yeah, people are asking some things about the classes and the URL and stuff like that.
Okay, groovy.
Okay, here we go. Another question on YouTube. Clearly seeing through the false identity regularly, though not always. Have often seen the body as just sensations and feelings and an image. What about remaining ID, probably id, I guess. What about remaining id, or ID, identification with body, and sense I die, when my body dies?
Well, okay. let me see. It sounds like this guy has a little bit of experience, so I'll take it there. And if I lose you, just say so. The sense of identifying with your body, where do you think that originates? The sense of I am my body, where does that originate? Does it originate here, or does it originate here? Does the real you have a sense of being the body? It's the question to ask. Even the impulse to identify with the body and be afraid that when the body dies, I'm going to die, lives here. As a matter of fact, that thought, I am my body, and the circumstances, characteristics, and destiny of the body are my characteristics, circumstances, and destiny, is the foundation of the false you. Because the false self, as just a thought, would be just a thought. It has to grab onto something solid that it can identify with. What it grabs onto is the body. That's why you hear in all sorts of spiritual traditions, I'm not my body. You are not your body. Now, some of them, most of them don't really understand that to the depths, and they somehow try to get rid of the body, right? As if it was ugly, wrong, bad, sinful, and some really horrible practices have resulted as a result. And even, huge austerities. I put myself through all sorts of austerities for a very long period of time. Before I really understood what was happening, that the false sense of self had simply projected itself on the body, and that there was nothing wrong with the body at all. It was just innocent. As you said, you had the experience as the body is nothing but the flow of sensation and feeling and thought. That is actually all there is to the body. I won't go into that right now, but the sense of I, the false sense of I, has to have something it can glob onto, because otherwise it's just a thought and nobody would pay any attention to it. It's like me saying, you're a telephone. You would pay absolutely no attention to what I said. But if I say, oh, you're a male or a female human being, you're 38 years old and you believe that. You, which is this, are your body. You believe it. Right? So that sense of identification is the energy of the false self. Now, what I say to you, and I'm going to take this here because you seem like you've had some experience in this way, isn't this sense of noticing that there's a sense of identification with the body and a fear of dying with the body, is that not being perceived by something? Is what is perceiving it, is it afraid of dying? Clearly, this is an activity of the energy of the mind. Right? Is that which is perceiving this activity, which you can clearly identify as an identification with the body that's afraid of dying, is that in fact in it? Or is there something else perceiving it? Now, any of you who are listening to this who aren't following me, don't worry about it. It's a non-dual inquiry, but this fellow seems like that would be the appropriate place to go. For the rest of you, just realize that the sense of being a body is the essence of the false sense of you. I am my body. You're not. You're pure consciousness. That seems so strange to people. What do you mean? I must be the body. No, my body, I have to have my body to live. No, you don't. You are the consciousness in which the body appears. You may have fun. I have two videos on YouTube. One's called What Happens When You Die. And the other is called What Happened When You Were Born, where I actually give a completely different view of what happened, that you were here first and that the body appeared to you and you identified with it, rather than the body appeared and then I appeared in the body, that I am in the body. Now that is the worldview. The worldview is that conscious awareness is a function, what they call in science, an emergent property of the complexity of matter, that completely conscious-less, mind-less, awareness-less matter, after enough billions of years, formed itself into a particular form that allowed it to, that which is completely unconscious, to create consciousness. That is regarded as the truth.
So let me cut you off now because someone just put a question.
I can't hear. Wait.
Okay.
What?
Yep, I'm going to say that. Let me cut you off now because someone just put a question as far as where you should steer this.
Okay.
And I want to catch it while you're in this space, because this is
Evan's kind of my producer.
And
I could go off on this.
And there's you'll see why I did this.
Okay.
The question that was typed in was, how do we start to step out of the body and into the consciousness? So you can see how what you're saying is being interpreted. So you want to catch that
yeah,
now.
Great. Thank you. You don't have to step out of the body. Why would you want to step out of the body? Right? You simply want to stop identifying with the body. The characteristics of the body are not yours. Any more than it's like the pianist saying, "I'm a Steinway." No, you're not. You're the pianist. You can play a Bozover, a Krakauer, a Steinway, a Yamaha. There's no limit. Right? You are not confined to the characteristics of this particular body mind that you are living, that you're living through. It's the limitations of the body mind, right? And the body mind has less limitations, right? I'm a 65-year-old Irish of Irish descent male. I'm about 5'7" with no athletic ability. All right. So there's severe limits on what I could do with my life. I was not going to be destined to be a basketball player. I was not destined to be a great dancer, right? But what this particular body mind does, it does really well, and I've learned to use it. The I I'm referring to is not the body. It is that which is animating the body. It's what's using the body to express itself. It is what's using the organization of thought to communicate with. The consciousness that is animating it is not stuck in the body. That's where you have to go. Christ put it like this. He said that the tree bends where the wind blows, but you can't tell where it's going, where it's coming from, or where it's going. Now, if we were ignorant, we would be looking for muscles and tendons in the tree, because we'd say, and we even say the trees are dancing, right? No, they're not dancing. That which is moving the trees isn't in the trees. That which is moving this body and yours isn't in the body. It's not stuck there. You are not stuck in your body. The body is simply the vehicle that you have right now. It's the car you happen to be driving for this moment. Right? So you don't have to get out of the body. We only have to realize that we are not limited by the body, that the destiny of the body is not our destiny. The body does come and go. The body does die. Right? Matter of fact, it's dying all the time. About 1 million cells die off every second, and 1 million new cells are reborn every second. Every 7 years, you go through an entirely new body, and those are the oldest cells. Some of the cells last a day, right? They die and they're reborn. So, I mean, this is not the same body that my mother gave birth to, or yours, right? Couldn't have, right? It's none of this is. It's constantly changing. What isn't changing? Right? Notice that there's a consciousness, that there's an awareness that was the same awareness when you were 3 as it is now. Right? Notice, you could just tell. Look for your own experience. Don't take my word. Don't take it as a theoretical thing. Just look. Just look. What I was experiencing was different. The experiencing itself was exactly the same. That's the real you. It's always been experiencing. It's what is actually having the experience. And I'll take it even one step further before I let it go, and that is that which is experiencing here as me is also experiencing there as you. The experiencing is universal, but I won't go there right now. Okay, what else we got? Did I cover that?
Oh, I'd say you did. And let's step back a minute, because I'm sensing I got a question here. Okay, is my energy system not my real me? Last class I had a really intense experience in this exercise. This time I struggled to stay with the instructions, feeling somewhat dissociated. Is it my energy system running me because it doesn't feel safe? If so, how can I turn to the real me when I feel like the body is controlling me? All right, everybody just forget about some of the, when your mind starts like trying to take everything that you're actually just experiencing directly and trying to sort it out into all these, what's the real me, what isn't real me, don't worry about it for right now. Don't try to take what GP is saying here to this place of, okay, well, so now does this mean that this pain I'm feeling isn't the real me? And the correct thing is to try to go to this place called the real me. You can just kind of feel the energy when the questions start going into that direction. And we really, our ideal thing here is to make this simpler for you, not more complicated. So when it feels like what's being talked about is making things more complicated for you, is when it's time to step back. All that's being said as far as like the real me, and does this mean the energy system is not the real me? We're talking about that everything that's being experienced can be observed by something, right? Now, if things are happening that are overwhelming you, where that doesn't feel accessible, right? Just take it right back to step one, which is to the sense of what you're experiencing, right? Because it's ironic in a way. It sort of twists into like the ultimate form of, now you're narrating the experience, right? You're describing the experience and creating the picture of the thing rather than the real thing. And we do that now with, okay, well, here's what I'm feeling, and how does this relate to this picture of the false self and the real self? And just go right back to, I'm feeling dissociated even, right? Dissociation is a feeling. You can observe it because you were able to type that, right? Think of it real simply right now. It's just the real me. Something noticed there's dissociation happening, right? And now the mind wants to go, well, where is that coming from? And is it the energy system running me? And is something else taking over control? And it feels like if that's articulated the correct way, it's going to resolve it, and it's not, right? That actually makes it more complicated. So just keep it very simple. If things kind of start floating into space for you, or the things that are being talked about feel like they're floating into space, if there's an experience that's dominating and it feels like disorientation or discomfort or anything like that, is the time to just turn to it and be with it in a very simple and direct way, like the first exercise. So I just wanted to take it there before we just got more of an answer that could easily spin it
Right.
further in that direction. So I'll
No.
step out of the way again here.
No, perfect. Absolutely perfect. As a matter of fact, because it's coming up on 4:30. Okay, I'm just going to put all of the questions in abeyance for a second. I'm just going to erase everything I wrote up here. And as I do that, I want you to just erase everything I've told you. Remember what I said right in the beginning. Life is felt, not thought. So to really grasp in a non-intellectual, but a deeply spiritual, deeply energetic way, everything that we've talked about, what you've seen to be true, what you've struggled with. What I want you to do now is just drop all of it. Forget everything I've said. Close your eyes. And just come with me now. And as we walk together, I want you to just little by little just set things down. Set down your ambitions. Set down your aspirations. Set down your fears. Set down all the ideas you had about yourself. Set down all the ideas about what I said. Even all the feelings you had about it, just set them down for a second. You could pick them up later, but as we're walking along this little trail, it's going to come back. I want you to just kind of set your mind aside. Set all of your aspirations aside. Set aside all of the ideas that you had about yourself. Just set them aside. We're not going to dismantle them or question them. Just let them go for a minute. Just drop them. We're not going to pick up any new ones. As we go, we're just little by little, everything's falling away. Your gender. Forget your gender. Forget your age. Forget your name. Everything that was added later, just setting it down. as you continue along. What you hoped to get from this class, set it down. What you hope to get from this exercise right now, set that aside. No expectations whatsoever. No imagination, set that aside. Don't need to imagine something. No visualizations, no affirmations. Expectations. We're not even waiting for something to happen. Now we're all sitting around this tree together. Just feeling. The senses are active. Thoughts come and go. Sensations are there. Feeling is there. Not a problem. We're just not mixing up with it. No stories, no ideas, just pure experience. Now, what remains that you just can't drop? Even your name you can drop. You could change it if you wanted to. Your gender you could drop. You can identify with anything. All the characteristics that have been acquired can be set aside, replaced. What can't be set aside? What simply cannot go away? With everything gone, nothing left, no thoughts, nothing. What remains? Isn't it obvious that there's something that still remains? Is this, whatever it is that remains, does it lack anything? Does it require any effort to maintain it? Does it have a belief, a religion, a name? Does it have a form? Is it just presence? You're just here. Is there anything else that qualifies to be called I? And is what is aware of this presence and the presence itself, are they different? Is there something else aware of this presence? Or are they one? Again, is there anything else that qualifies to be called me? Me without a history, without a definition, without gender and name and past, without beliefs, completely pure, untouched, untainted being. Now, is there anything lacking here? Does this presence need anything? Is there anything else that needs to be removed? Is it waiting for some event? Does it feel a sense of something missing? This is the simple, direct foundation of all experience. This is the self. It's what's there in the middle of every experience that we have. It doesn't require experience to stop in order to be that. It has no special requirements. It doesn't have to struggle to know itself. It isn't on a path. It's not seeking anything. This is you. This is the you who's there before any conditioning took place, before the nervous system did anything. And this is how instantly available it is. Does this have any questions? So now as we begin to come back to the room and a sense of self, a sense of person, a sense of these other things begins to arise again. Is the arising of a sense of being somebody or needing to do something or having a life or a spouse or a boyfriend or girlfriend or job, does any of that really impact this? Just look. Is it not possible for just everyday life to go on and this is just here in the midst of it? Is anything special needed? And just consider that as you begin to just come back now to being in this class with me and your life and your work and your friends and your lovers and your interests and your ambitions and aspirations and all the other stuff. Let it just come back now. Just notice that it has no effect on this whatsoever. This is the perfect integration of the human and the divine, the perfect reconciliation between what appear to be very polar opposites, but in fact turn out to be two aspects of exactly the same thing, the pure being. Take a deep breath. And when you're ready, open your eyes and welcome back. You'll find, if you continue in the training of inner reconciliation, that what we do, and I thank Evan for reminding me, it is this constant balance between what I call the yoga of allowing and the yoga of wisdom, where there's this really very intense and precise and intellectually, sometimes even demanding inquiry into the structure of things to try to see through it. And then there's just a coming back, dropping it, and going to a pure state of allowing, just pure being, where you're not trying to solve any problems. You're not fixing anything. You're not exploring anything. You're just being. And the true path, which I'm called the way of the Master Heart, which is why it's called the Master Heart Institute, is the capacity to be able to move freely between both. And the art of doing that. Because that is the essence of the twofold spiritual path. The path, in fact, anciently it was the path of Vedanta and the path of Tantra. And both of those have been kind of reduced to a shadow of what they really mean in their origin. But it is this path of very precise inquiry and wisdom, and the path of pure allowing, of being and flowing. And that's really the experience that we're forever doing, to kind of back out of the intensity to this place of just flowing and then going back into it again. And it's very, very effective spiritual path. So
Great.
you have appeared on the screen.
Yeah. And so there was a follow-up, and I'll just mention this to the person who followed up on YouTube, who you answered about the physical sensations. They were having energy moving through their stomach and stuff. They went on to elaborate to say that it was causing them suffering and that it was actually very intense. But they had, since they said they had this awakening experience, it makes sense, develop this capacity to be with it. And just take note of what GP had just said there, because this is a really common thing, especially working with people with the inner reconciliation process. It's quite possible to get very adept at developing that distance, and then you can just sort of hang out there for extremely long periods of time. And often it just means you've gotten so adept at being there, and then you realize that, well, but you can still inquire into that energy. If it feels stuck, if it feels contracted, it's like you become so good at it being, yeah, it's there, it's uncomfortable, but I'm fine with it. But you're now free to actually inquire and step into it and work with it. You know, I do this a lot on these calls, but it's like once the phone isn't me, you know, I don't have this personal, but if something's not working, I'm actually more free to just go, okay, something's stuck here, right? I don't suffer the same because I don't have this personal investment in it. But it also doesn't mean, well, it's not me, so therefore I should always just be with it as it is, right? If you develop this ability to be with it consistently, and there's still this constant tension or something, that's absolutely an appropriate time. And again, that's why the inner reconciliation stuff exists, why there's
Yes.
a course element to it, because you're kind of flexing both those muscles to say, okay, sometimes you just got to do an exercise like what we just did to kind of just reorient your position. And then sometimes from that position, it becomes much simpler to say, okay, there actually is something to address here. Now, how do I do that? And it's not necessarily just to say things to it or try to get rid of it. It's absolutely not that, almost ever. It's the steps of inner reconciliation, for those who haven't gotten any of the free courses or anything like that. It's invite, inquire, and integrate. And invite is essentially different forms of getting in that position where we are now after that exercise, so that you're not so spinning out in the narration of what's happening or so emotionally invested in what's happening that you can't really deal with it. I mean, we've all had something come up in our life where it's, okay, right now is not the time. I just need to process it for a moment, right? And that's a skill of sorts, to be able to just let the experience happen, develop the capacity to be with it. And then there's an appropriate time to develop that capacity to, okay, now this is here, how do I actually invite and then inquire, which means inquire. It's not, we don't say release, we don't say push away, we don't say anything that gives your mind the sense of intention other than curiosity, right? That's so that, okay, this energy is here, what is it? That's the best place to start from. And the more you practice it, the more it becomes a genuine, oh, what is the essence of this? If something is stuck, and feels uncomfortable, it's fairly safe to assume that that's not its natural state. Right? There aren't a lot of things in nature that are just like, I mean, there's enormous pressure on things in nature, but there's a naturalness to it. They're not, the mountains aren't experiencing suffering while they're being pushed up. So if there's that experience, there's likely something there, and that's an appropriate opportunity to say, okay, what's holding this in place? What's pushing against this? You always find that the essence of it is something trying to protect you. It's never negative. It's like, well, we can't let this move this certain way. And you'll find the reason the reason it says this can't move this way is because probably we let it come in once. We let ourselves be expressive once. We let ourselves eat that thing once, or touch that thing once, or express our romantic interest in somebody once, and it went really badly. So it just says, nope. But then there's that part of you that still wants it, and when you're just trying to make one side really strong, it's never really feels good. You get temporary wins, temporary success, where one kind of gives away, and then the other thing comes back. But they're partners when the safety is established, right? Which is why it's this kind of back and forth of reestablishing that kind of safe space and inquiring. So let me throw a picture up on the screen that has the link. And another two things we didn't mention, the courses are dripped out. So even though it says we have level 2 and 3, if you get level 2, it'll happen after this call. That's now there for you, and week 1 will now be available to you, and that's all that's there. And you'll go through it, and there'll be emails throughout the week. So and there's places to ask questions where we receive that you've asked a question. So this is more of like an actual course experience, as opposed to here's 40 hours of video, right? So you're not just getting it all dumped on you, and it's not all there even to dump, so don't ask. It will be dripped out, so just be aware of that. If you say, like, I bought level 3 but I don't see it, don't be alarmed. Everything's cool. You've got it. We know you've got it. You'll see it as it progresses. And if you have, right, the other thing is, if you have level 1 and you didn't get the email, I guess the timing, so 1 or 2 people maybe bought level 1 like today or yesterday. We'll email you again tomorrow or so, but there is a different upgrade link. I posted it in the chat. So if you already have level 1, there's some pages there, and you have to be logged in. You can only access those pages if you have level 1. So just be aware of that. And for everybody else, GP painstakingly worked out the pricing numbers, so it's not, well, should I go buy level 1 right now and then upgrade? It's whatever you could, if just get all 3, and it's going to work out the same, right? It's all good. You're not going to get, don't feel like, well, I already bought 2, so, he worked it out in a way that I was pretty amazed by. So it just made me have to create like 20 different order forms. But,
well, there was that, but we made it fair.
Yes.
We made it so everybody could get upgraded. Nobody would pay more than they absolutely had to.
Right. So that's all good. And let me put this link up. I didn't seem to be able to concentrate and share my screen at the same time. So this has the link on it, gpwalsh.com/earlybird. I think they can still maybe see you out of the corner of their screen, GP, so I'm just going to leave that up there.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be really good while we kind of bring this to a close. So, everything I was telling you today about, discovering the real you, about I've talked about the twofold path, We went through the experience of, we went through some really in-depth explanations, and then went through, totally just letting go of everything, and experiencing pure being. I mean, that is the essence and the practice of inner reconciliation. I call it inner reconciliation because it isn't self-help. It is an attempt to reconcile all of the disparate energies that live within us. And when we remember, I said to the one question that the ego is always taking a position. When it takes a position, it then begins to judge, criticize, deny anything that's not in that position. That's pretty natural. If I believe this is really true, then you must be full of crap, right? But we do that internally, right? So I take a position of something I want in my life, right? I feel a sense of inner resistance to it, and now I'm in conflict, and sometimes deep conflict, with my own feelings. But when we look a little bit closer, we find that the resistance within us is not a self-sabotage. It's not a demon trying to get you. It's a part of our energy system that is just feeling as if to do what it is you want to do is dangerous in some way because of a past experience. So it doesn't do any good to just make it wrong, make it bad, fight it. But if we let go of that position, the egoic position, and we step into a third position, where we recognize the desire to grow and to expand, and at the same time give as much love and attention to the resistant part that's trying to protect us, we've created an environment where this can happen, where the energy of protection can begin to learn that where you're trying to take it is actually a better place. And it itself can begin to explore the territory, find that it's safe, and therefore drop the defensive behavior. Because that's really all it takes, right? Your energy system didn't get stuck in a defensive posture because it wanted to. It did because it had to. And the moment it knows that that danger isn't there anymore, it lets go of the posture and moves very naturally into the secondary function of the human instrument, which is to be expressive. And so now you get the best of both worlds. You get to grow, evolve, and expand, and do it safely, with a context that actually ensures that the next level you get to is going to be solid and trustworthy. This is the whole territory that we've mapped out with inner reconciliation, to take you from knowing knowing nothing except the name. You don't have to know how to spell it, and all the way up to a thorough mastery of it. And even certified facilitators, we have a bunch of people who can coach on it, and we've even got one who's able to do classes on it. So so everybody, let's just kind of let everything go now for a second as we bring this to a close. As I say thank you all for being here, and I invite you once again to partake of the course. Like Evan said, we're not just going to dump everything on you. It's going to come out little by little, guide you through it. There's ways to ask questions, and we both answer them a lot. We have a Facebook group where we react to people. I will do videos for many questions that come up that I think require instruction. There's ways right within the course itself as you're taking that you can ask a question, and we get it and can respond to it. So really set up a learning environment to really absorb this, and a support community as well, so that when you run into something it just feels that you're just not getting, there's always a way for you to get an answer and get support. So just kind of let the whole thing go now for a minute. Just let go of everything we've experienced so far, and just come to this place where everything you're experiencing is supposed to be there. Even if it feels uncomfortable, if it feels like you want to resist it, even the sense of resistance, just be so totally open and transparent that everything is okay, right? For now. I mean, it can be not okay later. That's fine, right? You can take back a position. It doesn't. We're not trying to make a theology here or a philosophy. Just for a moment, let yourself experience a sense of there being nothing wrong in this moment. That everything is okay. Everything is exactly as it should be. And especially take that point of view towards yourself, towards your own inner world. Even the feelings that have seemed to give you so much trouble, just for a minute, give them permission to be there. And consider the possibility that maybe, just maybe, they serve some very important natural function. That they're an essential part of you, that you can, that they're a power that could be available to you if you just would give it enough time and attention to discover its true nature. Because as you see all of this, the incredible energy that makes up the human being, that is also your true self. That is also the you. That is the you that is available to you, that which is eternal and unborn and undying, so that you may express yourself, some aspect of your being in this moment. The perfect balance between the universal and the particular, so that the universe of music gets expressed in a single beautiful song. And the infiniteness and unlimitedness of your nature, which can express itself in an infinite number of ways, is expressing itself in this way right now. You're like the music. There's no limits to you. And this moment is the perfect expression of who you are in this moment. All of it, every feeling, every nuance, every thought, every sensation, everything is part of that expression. You are the king or the queen, the sovereign in this realm. It is all there to serve you and to give expression to who you are. It's the ultimate reconciliation with life. Because you don't have a life, you are life. Thank you all for being here. I hope you join us in the Inner Reconciliation courses.
GP, how long is this early bird?
It should go on for a few more days to give people a chance to hear the replays that haven't, but it's only going to be a day or two more.
Cool.
And then we'll have to go back to the regular pricing.
Great.
Yeah. So once again, thank you all. Thank you so much. And I hope you'll join me in this, and Evan as well. He participates in a very large way in this, as the senior facilitator for Master Heart, and the guy without which probably none of this would actually be happening. So we're kind of both essential to this party. So again, gpwalsh.com/earlybird. I'll see you guys in class. Until later, I love you all. Namaste.